Welcome to the Art of Ideas with Sam Foote, that being me. Anyway, we did a stream yesterday for, well, two streams yesterday, adding up to a few hours, and today we're just going to pick a little bit. A lot of the painting's a little too sticky and wet to really go into too much, so I thought we'd just spend a short amount of time today, maybe an hour, 2 hours, we'll see what happens. Just doing a couple little minor things, a couple little corrections. I've been playing around for a few hours here and there, trying to get more hyper color into it. Color is life. Anyway, I actually have pre-drawn out here a couple little areas that I want to change. I have no problem shifting my composition, even radically if I have to, depending on the situation, and I think there just needs to be a couple little minor adjustments. This dog looking dude over here and this jaw I want to move back. In fact, I would like to make her head a little bit bigger, but I think moving the jaw back just a little bit, her jawline kicking back a little bit, her ears a little too close to her eyes. So we'll work on that as best we can. At least get the first session on these changes done. Usually it takes 2 or 3 sessions to cover up anything that you're correcting, because paint, even though it can be opaque unless you put it on super thick, it's probably going to show through a little bit. Because all paint generally, even if it is opaque, has a little translucency to it. Not too worried about it. It should be a little bit of fun. I really wish I can go down in here today, but yeah, it's just, there's a lot of areas paint, and when paint's tacky, it's hard to paint into, so we're gonna avoid that and see what we can do. I also have a little bit of medium mixed up for doing a little bit more glazing in this top here. I did a little bit last night, and still a little wet, but I'm going to risk it, go in there and try and get some more dark blues into the perimeter of this tree canopy as a setup for when I go back and pull out more detail. I'm going to put more vibrant color into that, but light looks better against dark, so you can't see a light unless there's dark to give it a frame, so we're going to work on that a little bit, and maybe a little tweaking around in here if I can, but for the most part this could be a pretty easy session. Pretty short, and see what happens. I'm all set up, ready to rock, and got my medium right here. Fun little tip for everybody. I used to use clay, but now I use blue tack, poster putty, whatever you want to call it, to hold down all kinds of things. I'll show you some other time, but I have all my brushes held to my palette that way so they don't roll off. I have these little plastic ramekins held down because they're too light to stay on their own. And so my medium that I'm using today is just going to be real simple. It's a Lucas number 5, medium number 5, which is their Impasto medium. And I will use this a little bit with my oil paint when I'm trying to obviously get it to dry a little bit better, especially if I'm going super heavy with it. If I'm doing a really heavy, thick impasto stroke, you could take, like right in here, this is pretty heavy. I probably took a couple weeks to dry to the touch right here. This will cut that down by several times depending on how much you want to use. Obviously this stuff's pretty clear, so it doesn't affect your color, but the more you add to your paint, the more translucent it gets. So it's a happy little balance. And a medium that I've been enjoying lately is just using this with a little bit of OMS, odorless mineral spirits, in it, which is actually one of the ingredients on here is OMS. It's actually already in here, so I have no problem adding a little bit more cicative into this to thin it down a little bit. And the reason I've been using this instead of, say, Neomegalip or geez, I just blanked it. Or Well, I have the Neo Megalip right here. So you got that, and Liquin's the other one, which I do have some Liquin Impasto over here. And I have an equally sized, if not bigger, jar of Liquin that I actually already went through. Then I started using this Neo Megalip, which is great. But the reason I'm using this instead of Neo Megalip or Liquin, which a lot of artists tend to use, and there's nothing wrong with it. I actually quite enjoy those mediums. But the reason I don't use them anymore is because I don't like the sheen of them. They impart a very glossy look to them, and they're already thinned out, so I don't want to thin them out to lessen the sheen. Whereas with this, yes, this can look glossy too, but if you add a little medium to it, it really dulls down the gloss. And I like to keep everything to an eggshell or, if at most, satin finish while I'm working. It just makes it a lot easier to work over than to work over a very, very heavily glossed area. So we're going to do that, a little bit of glazing, and yeah, I think, let's see, what should we do first? I, in life, generally pick the hardest thing in the world to do first, but I think we need to warm up a little bit. I have been picking at this a little bit. Actually, I'm going to grab a different brush. I just had a kind of a smaller brush I was putting medium on. And let's just get sloppy for a minute and get into that background. And do a little glazing, because you can't really go too wrong with this. And since most of this background is fairly dry, we can wipe out our glaze if it gets too dark. And I'm just going around in these clumps of where there's going to be leaves. And I'm going to pull a lot more light into this. This is just to frame in these yellow colors. And it's going to look pretty messy as I do this. In fact, I'm just kind of globbing it on, patting it on in certain areas for now. And then I'm going to go back and blend it. I want it to sit here for a minute and evaporate some of that siccative, that medium out of it. It'll tighten up pretty quick, and it'll just make it easier to blend. Also, this medium imparts kind of a nice little drag to it. So when you're pulling with your brush, it feels kind of nice. Not nearly as much drag or as nice as, say, stand oil. Stand oil is a great medium. Just taking pure stand oil and mixing thinner with it, that works real well as a medium. But again, I don't really like using that anymore, because it is, stand oil in particular is extremely glossy. So I try to avoid that. It just causes problems. I try and keep the sheen on my paintings pretty as even as possible nowadays, and I just find that's a lot easier if I'm dry brushing most of the time instead of using a lot of medium. So I use medium pretty sparingly. And this one in particular I can get away with, again, because it is a little bit more of a satin finish once it dries, which it just, for me, is 100 times easier to work into later. Now I'm killing some of these more vibrant yellows and stuff that I have in here, but that's okay. They're coming back. This isn't going to murder them. It's not going to totally kill them. It's just going to calm them down. I'll still see where they are so I can pull them back out again later. And I'll probably leave some of them recessed so that it gives a little bit of drama and more depth. And this is pretty easy. You don't have to be a brain surgeon to put glazes on. And you can glaze in pretty much any medium. I mean, yeah, but, well, acrylic or oil, either medium. I'll glaze in acrylic sometimes, even though I don't use acrylic a huge amount anymore. I actually worked with oil, trying to learn oil for years before I got into playing with acrylic. And acrylic's great. It's fun for a lot of things, and I can do really great paintings with it. But I much prefer oil painting. I like the fact that I can keep it wet for a while and work it, And yeah, you can technically do that with acrylic, but acrylic also has a kind of a real matte look to it most of the time. And whereas with oil in my mediums here, I can get somewhere in between. As I said, eggshell to satin finish, which I prefer. It just makes it easier when you're working back into it when you go to glaze it, or to varnish it, to final varnish it. Or even doing pre-varnishes, if you're doing pre-varnishes in between layers. Yeah, I love this yellow in here, but it's getting killed for a minute. And I've got these warm colors, these oranges in here, but this is pretty heavy. This is what I did yesterday on the bottom. If you're wondering why the bottom looks like a big black hole that your soul is falling into, then that's why. It's because I put, again, a kind of a dark blue glaze, which, you know, into here. Which, ooh, that looked really nice. That worked really well. And I'll probably come back in here too and do what I'm doing, since I'm actually doing it. And now, see, this green that I drug into right there, whoops, is very, very wet, and it's pretty thick, so I'm not going to mess with that too much. I feel like I'm probably going to have to throw a fair bit more dark into this bottom before I really start pulling the light out in it again. Just trying to build layers of depth. And layering is a great way of getting that. It's also a great way of fucking yourself over and making something look dingy and dirty if you overdo it. There's a happy medium you have to find in life. As they say, moderation. Everything in moderation. Who am I kidding? I don't moderate much when it goes to color. But all joking aside, it takes a lot of skill, and it's actually one of the areas that I've been improving in more and more year by years. My use of color and contrast. I found, I was speaking in an earlier stream yesterday about how when I was younger, I actually tended not to mess with color too much. I was very much more into monotone work. And yeah, I'm just glazing all over the place. If this looks crazy, it is. I kind of want to flatten some of these areas anyway. Now I'm going to go around and move some of this stuff, so it's going to radically change. I'm just throwing this glaze in here because I think that would work really well there. Reestablish my shadows on this guy, and then in fact I kind of want to go back over all this warm area and then pull it back out again. That sounds self-defeating. Not really. It's all about building depth. There we go. It's going on real easy. This medium's really wonderful. It's pretty easy to use. Just have to keep a cap on it every night if you're not going to use all of it up. It'll last a few days. I use it very sparingly. It doesn't take very much. Beautimus. And just keep going in here and working. I might even leave some of these striations a little bit here and there. Striations from the brush as I'm working here. A little bit more interest. Starting to build a nice believability, a nice three-dimensionality to it, but it seriously needed to have more depth. I just felt that it was lacking in contrast. And I haven't worked on this paint for a couple years. I just put it away. It was just, I was working on other projects, and I haven't really. I've spoken about using shows to finish work. By saying a show you give yourself an obligation, and then you're forced to go finish all those paintings that you started and never got back to. But yeah, I haven't been doing a lot of shows the last couple of years because I've been just busy paying bills and working my day job, which seems a little self-defeatist. And right now I'm a little unemployed, so it's beautiful. Gives me the opportunity to do this for a while. I haven't had this much free time in years. And I swear to you, in the last 3 months, I've gotten so much better with my work just because I've had so much time to dedicate to it and really, torture myself with my inadequacies, with my weaknesses in my work. And it should be a good goal for anybody who does anything, constantly trying to coach yourself, looking for your faults. Yeah, that's getting really dark, but that's okay. We're going to leave it this way today. We're going to come back to it, and then we're going to make it really three-dimensional by pulling all the light back out. And we'll do that after this is dry. We'll do that in some cool colors first to build depth to these shadows. And then I'm going to come back with opaque and capture the light shining through. I was working on that earlier. I'm going to have to be a little careful because I have a whole bunch of thick little strokes I just put on here a couple hours ago. And those won't be dry for a few days. So after this session today, I'm going to put this guy back on the wall. And we're going to go back and finish up an earlier piece we were doing together earlier, a few months ago. Yeah, we're going to work on that guy tomorrow. So tomorrow's stream will be that dude. And you can look on the page. It's the first video in my video list. It's a painting we'll be finishing up tomorrow. It'll at least be the last major session, and then I'll probably pick at it a little bit. One of the ways I finish paintings is that when I feel like I've gotten all the main work done and I'm pretty confident with the piece for the most part, that's when I sign it. I sign it right then, even if I'll say it's done in my head. It's kind of like a psychological thing, and then I'll do my signature, and then I'll work on it more after I sign it, usually, because now that your name's on it, now that your ego's attached to it, and you're taking responsibility for it, you're on that one last few hour session or 20 minutes, whatever it is, and it's funny how that little spice session at the end, that little bit of pop, can just give it that little extra oomph. Maybe you work on a couple contrasty things, or maybe you work on your highlights, which is part of your contrast. It's part of your building your contrast is working your highlights. And as for highlights, I'll say this constantly. I tend to build my highlights up as I go. I don't save them for the end. Most artists tend to save their highlights for the end, or at least that's how they teach you in art how you should do it. Not me. I start building them up from the beginning. In fact, even in my first session, when I'm laying down my initial wash, I try to avoid getting too dark or saturated of a color into any kind of light areas. So if I had this area, for example, this background area, I would leave that lighter than it actually looks now and slowly darken it. And I do the same thing with the foreground. Even though I know this is going to be really dark, I'll do it light first on my first wash-in layer, just to know where I need to make it really dark on my next layer. And then I'll come back on my second wash, my second block-in layer, and get my darks and my lights a little bit more nailed. And then every session after that, however many there may be, well, that It's just the same thing over and over and over again. Refining composition, cleaning up your lines. I like soft edges on everything for the most part. So it's something I'll work on. My light's coming from here. You wouldn't be seeing any of this. It would be very much in shadow. And like I said, here's a good trick for you too. So as I was alluding to, this is my first underpainting layer on this piece. It was a wash, nothing but thinner, no medium, and I'm in fact going to change this composition. I'm going to change the flow of this river a little bit. And oh yeah, here's one of my tips I was just going to bring up that I forgot to mention. China marker, great stuff. Wipes right off, breaks. It's oil based, so these things with thinner are fantastic. It acts like a watercolor pencil with oil paint, basically. So if I'm going to do corrections, I'll make little notes and draw on this guy. Like I already know I'm going to move this nipple. It's totally off. So I'll pick the appropriate China marker for that area. And I know I'm going to move this over here in the next session. That looks way better. Alrighty. So I'll just draw it in there. And sometimes I'll use Prismacolor Premiers for the same thing if I want more detail. So Prismacolor Premiers and China markers, mostly China markers, they work real well on oil painting. So if I have this, is it dry enough? Let's see, yeah. So I can make that mark, that mark, that mark, and I can see it perfectly. And I'll just leave that there. I don't care. Maybe I'll put grass there. It's fine. But then if I, like, okay, so let's say I take that glaze, see? It's melting it like wax. It's just blending it right into my paint. Well, there you go. Just gave it a little bit more depth. Looks like I just had more grass. In either case, it's a very powerful technique I use all the time. Because I tend to change my compositions a lot as I go. I mean, I get the bulk, the main part of my composition pretty right. But, yeah, I mean, like, first off, this leg is way too cramped on this character. It's coming off here, and if it was more extreme, it wouldn't look so bad. But I'm going to kick it back. I'm going to have her actually, when I compose this, it got a little awkward. I used a photograph just as a rough color reference. And, it looks nothing like the photograph. And then the girl I just did from my imagination. Most of this is actually from my imagination, but I already have drawn in here where I'm going to kick the leg. Actually, I'm going to probably split the difference on that. I did not mean to do that, but it's okay. It's just paint. Anyway, actually that little cool blue looks really good there. But yeah, I'm going to come back. Probably going to do another thinner layer on this while meaning I will, as a medium, just thin my paint if I need to even thin it down with my thinner, just odorless mineral spirits, and I'll work this guy. And as I've said many times, I've got a video going on that dude. That'll be an edited video sometime down the road. And but most of the time, we're just going to be doing live streams and cranking on these guys. Let me take a step back, see where we're at, and check the camera. I need to always mention that please bear with me. I am recording on my cell phone over Wi-Fi. If the signal breaks up, just give it about 60 seconds. I think the worst breakup I think I've seen is maybe 3 minutes long, and it sucked. What can I do? Eventually, I'll have that thing hardwired, my camera. I found another program where I can plug it directly into my laptop and stream directly. But for right now, I already have, what am I using? I'm using Prism, I believe, as my streaming software, which has been really wonderful. It's fantastic. I really like it. Very convenient, very easy to use, very easy to understand. If you're thinking about getting into streaming, as I am right now, you know, then give it a shot. All you need is your cell phone and some decent lighting in your work area, and you're good to go. Decent Wi-Fi signal, that's pretty important. So yeah, you can see here, I've got that China marker, and I'm going to, I need to get over that. I don't know why I'm gonna, I'm gonna, I never do that in person when I'm speaking with someone, so I don't know why I'm doing it now on camera. It's a poor inflection that I'll work on. That's a nice yellow. But yeah, that's not where we're going right now. This isn't what I meant to do. I had it on my brush, and I'm like, let's just throw some of this up here. All right, so I need a color kind of close to this background color so we can cut into this character. I want to move his rib cage up and shorten his neck just slightly. It's I like long necks on my characters, obviously, but you know, I don't want to look like a giraffe. He's a little bit too long, just a touch. So we're gonna move it up about 1/8 of an inch, and should make a good change. So see how that goes. I'm gonna have to probably put some more phthalo blue out. I'm trying to use up all the color I put out about 3 days ago. So I've been working with the same paint that I put out for the last few days. And if I need to, of course, I'll add whatever I'm low on. But today, I don't know. I was thinking about running out all my color on this piece today and then doing some black and white on another piece I have going, which is kind of a dark piece. Dark surrealism. This is, I mean, I suppose you can say this is all very surreal in style from an aesthetic perspective, though I am not, nor do I consider myself a surrealist. Nothing wrong with being a surrealist. I'm just not a surrealist. I use dream imagery as inspiration to some degree, but I am not a surrealist. Most of my work is more philosophical, even if it is a pretty little picture like this that doesn't have a huge amount of meaning. All right, probably gonna have to throw some more blue out. I just killed most of it. So the best advice I can give to any artist, young or old, is to get over your fear, because that is, I think, the thing that hampers almost most of us, is the fear of screwing up. Because I know that's a great fear of mine, and I'm still trying to get over it. Sometimes I get paralyzed by my own stuff and don't know what to do. Don't know what to do to fix it or whatever, but lately I've really been getting over it. His shoulder blade, I'm just moving his shoulder blade up, and in fact at the end it probably won't be close to as pronounced. This is looking a little messy right now, but that's okay. Just throwing a lot of dark color in here, setting us up for the light. That looks okay. Maybe I'll bring that right shoulder up touch. There's a slight personification of my animals. I try and make them look a little bit humanoid. Just a touch. Just give them a little bit of human characteristics. Lighten these shoulders up because they're going to be catching a little bit of light. Just checking my music here. Whoops. That got a little loud, didn't it? I'm just streaming some copyright-free stuff. Yeah. Alrighty. I'll be back in front of the camera in just a second. Just messing with my laptop here for a minute. There we go. I'm getting the stream up on my laptop while the music's going in the background. All I have to do is find my volume control here. Turn this down a touch. Alrighty. There we go. Should be good for a minute. I always leave the camera zoomed out now. Every single time I try and zoom the sucker in and work in an area for you guys to show you what I'm doing, I forget to move it back out when I move, and I'm always moving everywhere. So I'm going to leave it out for now. And then I'll pick up the camera and pull it in when I want to show you guys stuff. Nice little thing that's happening right now too with this glaze is that it's being affected by the color under it, because this glaze is translucent. So I'm getting some nice greens at the base of this just by dragging this blue over here. And then this is very wet, this outline color. I just wanted a little bit of a glow. I'm going to soften this up here. It's very thick. Here's a fun trick for anybody who doesn't know this one, but a lot of artists use this, is Q-tips are wonderful little blenders when you're blending little tight areas. Now, of course, I could just whip out a little blending brush. I've got tons of them. And in fact, here's a perfect little blender right here I could use. But I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use this Q-tip because I can just toss it when I'm done. And Q-tips work so well. It's kind of shocking. Especially for edge control. That's actually what I'm doing right now, is I'm actually not dragging over the mass of the color. What I'm doing is dragging over the edge. And right now I'm just working on the inside edge. And just like that. Maybe I'll use that that little bit of dirt on the end of it to drag that color around a little. There we go. It gives it a nice little glow. And drag it over this, just for the heck of it. I'm trying to get this actually to recede this area. I want to throw a little warmth into it. And then I'll handle this corner. It's great. It's a lot of fun. It's dragging further than it normally would because I have wet paint on here, so it's helping a little bit. I'm doing this for effect, but I often do this where I'm going to do that in the grass too. I'm going to have extremely bright highlights in alternate complementary colors in here to separate some of this grass. Not everywhere. I don't want it to look gaudy, but I'm going to do it here and there. It'll be fun. Is it realistic? No. But is it cool? Hell yeah. I think it's cool. I love realism. I love seeing what people can do with realism, but for me, no. Not interested. Can I paint realism? Sure, I think anybody can. That's why I'm not into it. Now, paint it really well, it's a different story. I just don't find much interest in actual wanting to create realistic art. It's just no fun to me. I have. Every once in a while I'll do the odd portrait or whatever for a family member and blah blah blah. And they didn't ask me to do it. I was asked by, I won't say his name, but he was a customer of mine. He was a heavyweight, he was a heavyweight champion boxer. Yeah, there you go. If you got any sport fans in the audience. He was a buddy of mine. He contracted me to do a portrait of him and his wife at the time. And that was the first portrait I ever did. I had done portrait drawings before, but I did an oil. This is several years ago. It was a lot of fun. Now I'm working on one for my niece. I started a few years ago and never got around to finishing, but I will. It's just not my favorite thing in the world to do. Ooh, I have a bunch of dirt on my, not dirt, that's oil. It's probably actually the China marker, but I just smeared it all over the place on this thing. Just go into some of my medium since it has a bunch of thinner in it and try and erase that. Where did I, oh yeah, right here. That doesn't look good. Messing up my pastels here. No big deal. Excuse me, burp. Yeah, fuck it. It's no big deal. Never stress. I'm getting really good about that. Not stressing. It's only paint. It's not a big deal. Going back into that super bright pink. So, this is Psycho, but I'm going to come back into here at some point and do some fun little separating things like this. Just giving you a preview, and this will probably stay, so. And I'll create some like light passing through the grass blade effect, which I can't really pull off right now because the paint's too wet, but you know. Yeah. Said I wasn't going to go down in here, and now I'm going down in here. Breaking my own rules, me. So I'm wearing a hat today only because I think baseball caps, when you're in front of a camera, look stupid. Makes you look too much like a bro. And I like this hat quite a bit, but try and cover up my ugly bald head. It's always screwed up. Have quite a bit of eczema on my skull. Nice big fat bald spot on the back. Not a big deal. I don't care. It just grosses me out when I look at it on camera. Most of the time I'm not going to wear hats, so. I even decided to throw on a decent shirt for you guys. Dressing up for you now. Totally the wrong color there, but that's okay. Alrighty. Now let's see if we can start carving out this guy in the background. I'm going to have to put some more blue out here in a second. I'm scavenging. That means I'm just trying to dig up whatever I can find on my palette here. There we go. See how easy that was? Just cutting it down. Probably can't see. It's so dark. Let's see. I'm trying to erase all this. Go in there. I'm going to go in there with a lighter color, just to pop this guy out, and then I'll come back and adjust it once it's dry. Sometimes it's good just to, especially if you are radically changing something, sometimes it's good just to be extreme about it, you know, when you start, because it'll make it a little easier than doing, say, 5 or 6 layers trying to cover up the transparency of your correction. So sometimes I will just get radical like that, and I will still have to come back and work on that, but just made my life a little easier, I suppose. All right, I'm just trying to frame him out a little bit so he pulls out of the background. There we go. There's all kinds of stuff to be done in here. I'll spend hours in here messing around. But you can see how this green is just starting to pop. And I'm thinking about the flow of my grass, not to make it look realistic, but to create a pleasing composition. It's like everything is hugging each other. It's something I try to do, besides create focus in certain areas by how you're directing the eye. I also try to create little embraces in the compositions. I love composition. It's actually one of my favorite things, but I can get pretty nitpicky with it sometimes. Changing things several times into a painting, rendering it out in detail, and then deciding, that looks fucking terrible. I think I'm going to come back and wipe it out and do it again. You know, that can be a big factor in how long it takes me to get something done if I'm going back and changing major areas all the time. And it happens. Actually, I don't want that light in there. His legs should be going this direction, so you wouldn't see that light up through there. Yeah, that looks much better. All right, cool, perfect. Just that those tiny little adjustments can really make a huge difference. I mean, think about it. Most people's eyes are only a couple millimeters in variance from each other on most people's heads, and those couple millimeters can make someone look completely different from another person. So if you screw up and you get something a couple millimeters off sometimes, which I always do, because that's just the kind of asymmetrical artist I am, then yeah, you're going to be fighting yourself, and I end up fighting myself quite a bit. I have non-artist friends who will come over and just be like, did you mean to put that arm there? Or why is the thumb on the wrong side of the hand? And I'll just be like, dope! Even if you've been doing this for years, you can still fuck up like an amateur all day long. All right. We all make mistakes. The better you get, the more you see them before somebody else does. You hope. But while we're painting, just like just like any musician can relate to, just keep playing, just keep going. Don't stop. Don't throw your hands up in defeat, just keep moving. Yeah, it's a pretty bright orange. I was throwing this orange into this turn. And you'll see me use the same color in different areas all the time. I do that a lot. It creates color harmony. It's repetition of color. Repetition of color in the background to the foreground. It doesn't mean that because I have all this green grass down here, I'm going to grab all this pink and start throwing it into this grass. But I might take a little bit of it and throw it into some highlights here and there. And that'll just help everything. Reflected light, man. Reflected light. Light's always bouncing around everywhere. And I always try and take where the light's bouncing into account, just to, again, set up believability, even though we're just painting from our head right now. I might move my mic up a little bit. It's like slid down my shirt. There we go. A little better. You probably hear me better too. Cool. My stream is showing one watching, which is probably me, since I have my own stream up. It's alright. I knew this was going to take a long time to catch traction, so I'm not too worried about it. You have to start somewhere. I should have done this in 2011 when I was really considering it. It's okay. Can't go back in time. You can only use the time that you have the best you can. The older you get, the more you realize that and start to really cherish your opportunities. When I was a kid, I was, and I am still too much of a nice guy sometimes, but if somebody was like, hey, do you want this? Do you want the last piece of pizza? Even if I wanted it, I would never say anything because I didn't want to intrude on anybody else. And all those kids who were the first one to jump up and be like, me, always got ahead. So, do whatever in the hell you want to do with yourself, but the older I get, the more I speak up, start taking action. This is a perfect color for this area. I couldn't have done any better. I'm really happy with that. Oh, hell yeah. Swarming the edge up. I don't want to mess with this mauve-y kind of color I have here. I actually really like it, so. Probably gonna leave it. This color's a good bit more saturated than that other color I was just using. So I'm gonna throw that down into this slightly more shaded area. Just to indicate a little bit of detail, a little bit of this cloud catching some light, and then I'm going to leave it alone. I'm not going to do a huge amount of detail on these background clouds. If I do, they'll just make them pop forward too much. I don't want them to be a distraction. They're just a complement. They're a complement. They're in here kind of helping to wrap around everything, create a sense of flow. Probably shouldn't have used that yellow there, but that's okay. We'll just go into a warmer color. It's a little better. I kind of made a dirty orange color that I like, so just putting it where I think it'll work. Now that highlight should get toned down because it would be in shade. And no, not working from photo reference right now, just working from my head. In fact, I haven't used any photo reference on this yet at all. Not that I can recall. All right. See if I can get any more glaze going on this background. I already, as I said, I'm pretty much done on my blue. I need to put more out. That's why I stopped glazing back here. Not a big deal. But I have a lot of other colors on my palette that I can use without stopping, so I'm just going for those. I really highly endorse just, I don't know if I would call it wiping out. I was getting too nitpicky with all this area. That's why I'm going back and darkening it all. Just like in the foreground, got a little too nitpicky with it. So I'm going in, I'm just darkening everything, and then I'm going to come back and pull all the light back out. It should be a lot of fun. I can't wait to get to that part. But that's going to require this drying up, so everything in due time. Patience, patience. Which is something you learn over time. You gotta build that patience muscle. As much with yourself as with your work. It's easy to get down on yourself and be hard on yourself when you're not as good as you wish you were. But that is a matter of determination and time. And you have to learn patience and apply the right pressure, because everything that's good gets done with pressure and time. Give something enough focus and enough time, A man, a woman, a human can move a mountain. Might take them a few million years. But if they live long enough, they could do it. If nature didn't move it on you faster than you can move it. I'm just babbling, just trying to keep my mouth moving, as well as my brush. And I think I'm almost completely, I'm going to see if I can scavenge just a touch more light blue, because I want this to be, this dark color to get lighter as it goes towards the center here. In fact, this will get a lot lighter here in a minute. I think I'm going to throw a lot more white into it. It's going to help reinforce all the warm color I threw back in here. Yeah. I swear, if I'm doing like a 12, 18 hour painting session, I'll be pacing back and forth, make a stroke, step 10 feet back, make a stroke, ad infinitum, and probably walk a few miles, few miles in a 12, 15, 18 hour session, day, whatever. Which isn't unusual for me. Most of the time I try and pick out littler sessions, maybe work a few hours a day, but try and work almost every day. But you're the boss. Whenever you want a day off, you know, that's up to you. That's funny. In the song, they just said that line right after I said it, which I don't think was much of a coincidence. I'm not superstitious or anything, but the universe is weird. I just notice certain patterns. If you think about something, you think about an old friend you haven't talked to in a long time, and then 5 minutes later they're messaging you. Shit like that happens all the time. It's weird, and I don't think it's accidental. The universe listens. So stay positive, because if you're negative, you're just going to draw more negativity your way. Oh yeah, that little light blue in this transition's nice, especially as I start pulling warm color back out of it. I'm kind of covering up some of the warm color here I like, but that's okay. Sometimes you have to break a few eggs, as they say. You know, you have to wipe out what you like in order to make something look right, you know? It doesn't mean we're not going to go back in there and fix it, because we most certainly are. Alright, I'm about ready to step back here. I want to see what this is looking like from a distance. This light blue I just put in here, and this paint's really wet. This yellow, this extreme yellow right at the end of my brush, those are pretty thick strokes. They're really thick, actually. And yeah, I just put them on, like I said, a few hours ago, so they're soaking wet. I'm trying to stay away from them a little bit. Lighten this up even more. There we go. I like working these saturations against each other, more saturated versus less saturated. That's how you get a lot of atmosphere, a lot of glowy effect in anything you're trying to do. If you're trying to create a sunset, I would do the same thing, just with different colors. And I love to animate my sunsets. I like to have the sun rays all physical and weird, looking like the side of a Harley-Davidson gas tank. I'm kidding. I think that's a little corny, but that's how my last painting is coming out. It looks like a... it really does look like a gas tank. But it's okay. I like it. It came out pretty good. I'll be working on that guy tomorrow, probably, like I said, if I have any color left. And if not, if I use up most of my color, then I'm going to opt for working on a black and white. Well, it's not black and white. It has umber and a few other things in it, but it's pretty monotone. And I'm thinking I'll probably throw a little color into it here and there. I was thinking about that last night. I got pretty excited about it, some of my ideas, but I have to work the underpainting a lot more. So I'm not done with the underpainting on it, which is, I hope what we're working on tomorrow, it's either going to be a piece comparable to this in size. It might be bigger. I don't remember. Actually, I think it's quite a bit bigger. So we might be working on that black and white tomorrow, or we might be working on another equally psychedelic looking colorful piece. Got quite a few of them around here going that I would love to finish. So while I did start one piece for this channel, I'm going to be pretty sparing on that for the next month or two and just try and finish some old stuff. And then we will be busting new stuff out constantly, and hopefully a lot faster than my usual pace. Because I find just being in front of the camera commits me to being in front of the camera and in front of my canvas more than I would normally be. I would normally just do a few strokes, hang out for a little bit, paint on this guy, and then take a break, which I'm still going to do. But I'm just trying to extend my sessions in between breaks a bit more. I love taking a lot of breaks because I spend 90% of the work on any painting I do is observational. No bullshit. I sit back and I stare at these fuckers for hours. Let them torture me. I have Star Trek or some show I like, some cheesy show I like in the background, and I won't be watching the show. I'll be staring at my work constantly, thinking, how do I get better? I'm not good enough. Where can I go? How can I make this not completely suck? How can I honor all my forebears being great artists? How can I become a great artist? How? It's always a good question. And by constantly asking the question and doing the work, maybe history will remember us well. Never think yourself as a great artist. I think I'm okay. But I don't think I'm the greatest artist in the world. I think I'm an artist who's hungry and always willing to learn, and hopefully through learning have the ability to even pass my knowledge a little bit to you guys. So if there's anything you ever accidentally picked up, or if you're just slightly entertained by my antics, then there we go. I'm really trying to create a very soft, it's hard to do. I have too much of this yellow in here. These heavy strokes, I'm screwing them up. I'm not too worried about it. But it is screwing them up. And I'm out of medium, and I'm out of blue, and I'm gonna have to take a break here just to put out, well, not take a break, I'm not gonna shut the camera off, but I'm going to probably have to grab some paint here if I want to continue in this area. And besides, I'm gonna need that blue for other things anyway. Since I'm working generally mostly in primaries, I always throw out convenience colors if I can, you know, and I have a lot of tubes of oil paint. Lots of huge, juicy, beautiful 200 milliliter tubes of oil paint. The only kind I get. Big old fat tubes. Multiple brands, anything in a 200 milliliter, 200 milliliter, I'm sorry. That's pretty good quality, and yeah, I'm down. I use Winsor Newton, Lucas. I'm going to butcher the name. Daler Rowney. I can't pronounce that very well. Whatever works. Unfortunately, they don't sell the Lucas around here. I have to order that. Alright, going into even lighter blue. Oh yeah, that's beautiful. I'm just touching it in between here and there to create a little drama. I'm glad we did this. It's working pretty well. I like it. See, experience. I didn't know if that was going to work, but I was pretty sure it was going to work from experience. Since I like to work out in my head, sometimes it takes me a long time to find resolution with something. Like I might rework areas dozens of times until I'm really happy with it. But through this channel, I really hope to become more, what's the right word? I had it. It's hard to think sometimes when you're painting, concentrating on what you're doing here and trying to find the big words. Decisiveness. I've said it in my other videos. I'm really seeking more decisiveness with my work, meaning instead of just blah, 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 and then having to go blah, blah, blah over it again to correct what I did because I wasn't paying attention. I'm trying to be a lot... It's about slowing down, really, and thinking about what you're doing more. That's what it comes down to, and I'm trying to do that more. I'm a pretty anxious person, I'll say that. Often I am very anxious. So sometimes I'll be flying around like crazy, especially when I'm doing a pure finger painting. I'll just have hands full of paint in my hands, raw, no gloves, and just smearing it all over the fucking place. It's beautiful. I love it. Can't wait to start doing that with you guys too, because those are some of my favorite pieces. Those are my abstract works, and they're still very much a landscape in a sense, a headscape. Sometimes I even do with a nude. I have one over here actually on my wall I could grab for you to look at, but we'll do that another time. It's actually a nude that I finger painted. It has a little bit of brushwork in it though, just a touch to clean up some of it, which is kind of a cheat. But it was just because I tried to do a finger painting with a nude finger painting, and I think it would work wonderfully. I just need to simplify, which I'm going to be doing a lot more simple compositions. But that one wasn't very simple, so it got a little complicated. And I don't care about dragging over this. This is going to be her hair. I like doing really long, obnoxious, beautiful hair. It's fun. It helps with the composition. I use it as a compositional element in almost all my paintings that have characters in them. All right. Pre-screwed on blue, so I'm gonna have to go grab some. There's a little bit of warm color shining through here and there. That's nice. I'm also trying to fill in some of the granularity in here. This was actually initially this canvas itself. I tend to wrap my own canvases if they're bigger. If they're smaller, if they're like 18 by 24 or smaller, then I just buy them because it's the only time I'll make a canvas that size from scratch is with the scraps. Because I usually just buy huge rolls of Caravaggio. That's the canvas I prefer to use. But every once in a while when I'm in Michael's, they'll be having that 40-50% off sale, and they just happen to have a roll of canvas there for $40. Every once in a while I'll buy one, but I don't think I'll be doing that in the future. It's just no offense to Fredericks, it's fine. You sand it down enough, you put enough coats of gesso on, and it's fine. And that's what this is. And in fact, this is for the most part almost glass smooth because I put so many layers of gesso on it, mixed with a little tiny bit of homemade texture medium. Which is a bad move, because now I'm going to have to write on the back of this, never remove from stretcher bars. I have a couple paintings like that you should never take off of these stretcher bars. Or if you do, you need to be really careful, because you could crack. I mean, there's still a lot of flexibility to this, but I would not take this off and roll it, because of how many layers of gesso and texture medium I have on here. It'd probably crack. And that would be a travesty, I would hope. Unless you really hate the fucking piece of work, then yeah, it might not be a travesty. All right, so that effect's looking pretty good. I'm liking it. I want to even it up a little bit here, though. Just by throwing little bits of cool in between these worms. Because I want these... That's perfect. That'll work real well. Having these little patches of cool color in between these worm color is going to create the effect of maybe some leaves way back up here in the distance at the top of the canopy, because the canopy of the tree is really where all this light's coming from. That's actually the top of the tree. If you thought of this as a curved cylinder, it's going away from us. I don't know how well I'm really capturing that effect. I just kind of did it on my skull. I throw in these these cool colors a little bit next to these other warm and cool colors. It's going to make them pop a little. Looks random. It isn't random. I'm actually picking and choosing where I'm going in with this cool color. And I can't wait to get those warm colors back to go into here. I always think of color in terms of cool and warm. It was a real revelation. I mean, I was watching... I kind of learned that from a portrait painter I was watching years ago. It was a long time ago. It's probably like 20 years ago. But really gave me a lot of insight into how to break color down really fast. Like, is it a cool or a warm color? Is it blue, red, yellow? That's the first thing that most people think. But really, think it in terms of color temperature is an easier way to go at the beginning. And then try and narrow it down into its components of blue, orange, yellow, whatever, purple. It's easier to think about once you know if it's going to be a warm or a cool color. All right, almost perfect. Nothing's ever perfect. Perfect in the moment. How about that? Momentary perfection. And I want this. I'm going to actually throw some more yellow into this, because I want this to look like the canopy is over here too. And I kind of lost that when I was doing this. So I'm adding kind of a yellow, green, bright glow to the edge. And just, it's a little too round. It's looking a little too popsicle-y, but that's okay. Most people won't notice too much. I might break it up, for sure. This game painted as you're watching it, so we'll see what happens, huh? Oh yeah. Bouncing. This color's a lot warmer, so this is actually starting that whole process of pulling out warms and cools. Because I'm going to go down and, or go back into it with a smaller brush and start picking out the highlights. But we'll get there eventually. And yes, I can paint both hands. I'm not fully ambidextrous, but I'm not bad. All right. You'll see me do that with Q-tips a lot. I'll have it in one hand, I'll work, and then... No, this hand isn't done. It's not even there. But that'll make that hand pop out because it has that cooler backdrop. This hand is going to blend in more, but I kind of like that because it's further away. And I think I'm going to have a butterfly on her hand. I always kind of like plan that, like a butterfly sitting on the back of her hand. She's kind of spaced out. In fact, I'm going to probably, I was thinking, have a big ladybug over here, maybe a dragonfly over here, and maybe some birds in the background. Just trying to make the world feel a little lived in. I just thought it would be kind of fun to do. I like critters, love critters. I like animals a lot better than I like people, unfortunately. Even though people are animals. That's why I don't like them. Alright. For anybody who doesn't know, I grew up partially on a ranch, so I grew up with a lot of manimals. All right, grabbing a little blue. Think I'm gonna grab a little cyan, and probably just I think I'll just grab some ultramarine as well. I might grab some phthalo. I'm not sure. Blues for me are very different from each other, whereas reds aren't that different from each other, to me at least. That sounds confusing. I just mean that if I have, say, bright red and a good primary magenta out in the CMYK scale, then I can mix, and yellow, various yellows. There's lemon yellow out right now, which is cool yellow. And then I've got cadmium yellow, which is traditionally warm yellow, but I got green in it accidentally, so it's looking a little bit more like a warm, cool yellow. It sounds confusing, but it's having an identity crisis right now. So if I take, so I have 2 yellows, I have 2 reds. Right now I have, well, I'll have 2 blues. And that give me that's it, and some white. No black. Not that I don't put black out. I definitely do put black out sometimes. It's great if you really want some desaturation. I mean, I usually just use complementary colors with my colors to gray them out. So if I had a red and it's too red, I'll throw a little green in it to calm it down, and vice versa. Or purple, I might throw a cross complementary. I like, with purple, I like throwing a little yellow, a little green in it. That'll dull it down. So that's the way I generally work most of the time. But if you want a real grayed out color, to give those bright colors something to really pop against, then I very highly suggest, a little bit of gray. Don't listen to the hype about never using black. That's a bunch of fucking bullshit. There are no rules in art. They're more like guidelines. If you know the rules, you can break the rules. All right, I'm going to stare at this for a second. This is going to be really exciting, watching me stare at something for a minute. I actually did most of what I wanted to do so far. I'm going to pull a lot more light out in this. I think I'm going to go back in here and actually right now and clean this up a little bit for the next session. There's a lot of cleanup to be done on this. I'm going to have to go back in through here. It's starting to look a little dingy in this leg here. Because last night I actually changed. I had a real dark, almost phthalo blue here as a core shadow, and it really just didn't jive. So I made it purple, and I left this back one a little bit more blue. So no, I think I'll pull more warm color to this side of the tree. I don't know if I'll do that right now. Let's see. There's all kinds of things that we can do. And I'm slowly kind of working on the background. I'm working on the whole image together. I always do. And while, yeah, a lot of painters, they'll say throw your background in first and layer everything forward. I'm no Bob Ross. I am not just laying it in and then not messing with it again. I have to mess with everything. I have to create a certain balance. And for me, at least, because I do paint mostly from my imagination, that resolution, this equation has to get solved gradually. I have to let it bother me and tell me where it's messed up. But I see little things all the time, like maybe this is too far forward here at the base, so maybe I'll come in with a little glaze and throw a little distance in between there. Which I kind of want to do that anyway. I want to wipe this out a little bit. It's just too dark. Yeah. There we go. It's a little better. And just constant little adjustments till you run out of shit to do. When you're happy with it, it's done. If you can't figure out why it doesn't look finished, then it's not done. Give yourself some time, take a break, work on something else. sometimes I'll get stuck on a painting so bad that I'll start another painting, do something different. And while I'm doing that painting, I'll improve. I feel like I get better with every single painting I do. Every single fucking painting. I might mess one up every once in a while, but I really believe I get better with everything I do. Every single thing I do, every single time I learn something. So it's pretty intoxicating. If I were to live 3,000 years, which, yeah, I doubt I'll live another 20 years, but if I were to live another 3,000 years, I guarantee you I'd be learning new shit constantly. Might not even be painting at that point. Who knows? I'd probably be doing something else, building spaceships. I don't know. I do sculpt a lot. Sculpting, and most of my sculpture, to be clear, is more like automotive design, stuff like that. Something I have a passion for. It's like my hobby. But I have more serious glass sculpture coming, and that's going to be dear and near to my heart. And we'll be doing that on this channel a little bit. But I need to establish that to... I think I came up with it. We'll see. But I have kind of a different way of working with glass. Or a different idea of how to perceive it. We'll see. I've looked around. I haven't seen anything really too close to what I'm doing. I've seen some things that are a little bit like what I'm doing, but not exactly what I'm doing. I've had ideas on what I want to do with glass for almost 30 years, and I could never figure out how to pull it off until real recently. So in the last year and a half, I've been doing glass sculpture in the background. As I said, that'll be another thing we'll see. Oh, I am starting to throw this warmer color back in. And I'm just going to do that where I'm going to have sky holes. Just framing where I have sky holes. Just throwing that warm color around where the light's going to be shining out. It's actually going on pretty nice because I did just glaze over those. I honestly really shouldn't even be doing this until this dries, but we're getting risky. I just missed some of that warm green I had in there before that I just wiped out. So I'm just throwing it in here as a note because I'm going to come back and really spend a while going in here and picking it out. Now I'm making this background kind of more abstract, a representation of a tree. I really don't want to go in and like detail and pick out every leaf. I'm over that. I used to do that shit all the time in my art when I was a kid. Younger, anyway. Now I prefer to imply it, which, don't get me wrong, I'm not selling the audience short. You get up on these things when I'm done with them. They're plenty detailed. I don't like laziness in art. Lazy art is just doesn't do much for me. Now, easy to create clever art. I don't consider that lazy. I consider that cleverness. Like, despite how anybody who's watching this might feel about contemporary modern art, I'm a huge fan of it. So I'm a big fan of every art genre. I just think that there's good art and bad art and everything. It's good abstract art, bad abstract art, and how do you define that? Well, by what you like, because it's all relative. I mean, it's relative to the observer. What's good to one person is bad to another. Some people like PlayStation, some people like Xbox. Deal with it. I like them all. So, it's like with music with me, I like almost everything. Not as much a hip-hop fan anymore as I was when I was a kid. I'm getting into that old man mode. Actually, most of the time, I like listening to classical music. But this is 10 hours of streaming copyright-free music. So we'll see if... I looked at the comments. People seem it was pretty safe to use. So, because I know some copyright-free music sites will say it's copyright-free, and then you'll get a claim on it right away. But this is just background noise from when I'm not talking, so you guys don't wonder what the hell happened to me. Because I will step out of frame quite often because I'm standing back there staring at what I've been doing here. I want to warm up where these tree trunks are, but I am going to do that so subtly. Especially right now. I'm just trying to... I can still see them a little bit. I just glazed over them so they got a little bit obliterated, a little bit wiped out, but... Ooh, that was a little darker than I wanted. Now it isn't. A lot of people, and very justifiably so, are afraid of the toxicity of oil paint. And yeah, there's... Now, over time, a lot of oil paint companies are pulling out a lot of those heavy metals like cadmiums and things in paint are actually going away. It's becoming much less of a concern. But with a lot of my paint, it's still like cadmium red. Still has a lot of cadmium in it as far as Winsor & Newton is concerned. So they even warn you on the label. It says cadmium. But I don't care. I mean, yeah, I'll care on my deathbed if I... But I just want to get the job done. There's something kind of alluring about smearing around paint with your hands. And I like how it leaves my fingerprints in it. Now, there's plenty of people who finger paint, like do pure finger paintings in oil. That's not overly unusual. There's Ira Scott, for example, who, yeah, whatever. I like her work a lot. I don't mean to whatever her. I really respect her. I sometimes whatever her only because she claims to be the authority and the creator of finger painting, which I find ridiculous. I hate it when artists do that, you know? And they do it as a sales tactic. But what kid 100 years before her wasn't in a fucking classroom finger painting in grade school? I mean, give me a break. Like, she invented finger painting. Or Aborigines, 40,000 years of finger paintings and wall art on caves. She did not invent finger painting, but her work is phenomenal, and I wish her all the success that she already has. She's very successful, I believe, and deserves it. I think it's great. It's just, she has a big fucking ego. And so do I sometimes. It happens. You gotta tear yourself down, pull your head out of your ass, and realize that in 5 minutes you're probably gonna be crying because you think you suck. Ego can be useful sometimes, though, because people believe in... I believe in confidence. And I read a quote recently. It said something to the effect that the difference between confidence and ego, something to the effect of, this paraphrasing, but is that a confident person doesn't need to compare themselves to anybody else. At least in order to feel justified in what they're doing. And I wholeheartedly believe that. None of us create anything really unique. Oh, to go back into the contemporary art, I'm just babbling. I'm just giving you my worthless fucking life philosophy on art. Whatever that's worth. Because it's not worth anything to anybody except for to me, so. Alright. See, that was so worth it. That was so worth it. That worked really well. Going back in, darkening it, and going back in, pulling the warmth back out. Pretty happy. It's working okay. Like I said, I shouldn't really even be doing this right now. And this is going to take hours. I mean, it's going to be back and forth. Some of it's even going to get darker than what you see. I'm going to have some darker leaves in here. I'm really just creating the impression of leaves here and then. I'm trying not to get too patterny with it because that'll just make it look horrible and artificial. You don't see me use a lot of huge brushes. In fact, I do the biggest thing I've ever painted is like 10 by 15 feet, and that was a wall, it was a mural, but like the biggest canvas I've painted so far is around 6 by 4 feet, and I've done a few of those. In fact, I have one right here within 2 feet of this piece, which we'll be working on a lot. In fact, it's far more crazy and detailed than this piece. But that was almost all liner brush. Yeah, I use tiny little bitty brushes to do this stuff most of the time. Because I want you to see the effort, I want you to see the stroke. I used to be all about like smooth shading everything, and which in oil paint's so easy. You know, and people are impressed by that, and I'm just like, really? Why? The stuff doesn't dry fast. It's pretty easy to make look smooth. All you have to do is start smushing it around and it'll blend just fine. And I use blending now very tactically, very limitedly. Yeah, pulling out a lump there. That's kind of cool looking. Yeah. I just don't like boring art. In fact, I've been to the Getty quite a few times in LA, and I love that place. I wish I would just give me a couch and a blanket so I could just live there. But then it drives. I usually go with someone. Like I'll go with friends or I'll go with my family, and I think I've been in the Getty like 7, 8 times. So I could probably give tours of that place, but there are certain rooms that get me all excited. They have rooms with a bunch of Monet. Actually, there's more Monet, I think, actually in LACMA, LA County Museum of Art, than there is in the Getty. But so if you want to look at Monet, there's probably more in there. But at least the last time I was there. And but they have like a Van Gogh, a Renoir, and I think quite a bit of Monet at the Getty, as I recall, at least when I was there last. And then Turner, William Turner. They have at least one William Turner I always go straight to like a moth to a bug light. And it drives people crazy. If I'm traveling with somebody, they're like, dude, like seriously, you want to hang out in this room all day? Because I find it really hard to pull myself away from it. And that's actually when I really started getting more into adding impasto and more color into my work heavily. Is the first time I saw Van Gogh and Monet and Renoir in person. It really inspired me. And actually, one of the paintings that a lot of people of mine, or a lot of folks and collectors and friends have liked that I've done the most, is actually a painting that I did right after I was inspired by a Van Gogh. So, which is on my website, samuelfoote.com. Just look around, you'll probably find it, and you'll know exactly which one it is. It's called Set. S-E-T. This thing's got a short in it, so every once in a while you gotta kick it in the butt. Alrighty. I'm not really sure how much... I guess I could work on this a little bit. I just put a bunch more blue out, and that's probably a mistake. I guess we're doing color tomorrow. Yeah, so we're probably going to work on another color piece tomorrow. I haven't grabbed something else to work on. I have this piece I haven't worked on in a few years that I started probably 8 years ago. That I just never really got around to finishing. I might pull that out. And it's a mess. I don't know if I'm going to be able to rescue it, to be honest. We'll see. But if I can't, then I'm going to start that painting over from scratch on a new canvas. It's actually on a board. It's on hardboard, actually. But yeah, the idea is too good. It's a more philosophical one of my pieces, and I really appreciate the message I have in it. And it looks good. It's just that I kept changing my style on it, and I at certain points would get really impasto with it, so it's starting to look real messy. And I'm crossing areas that I already did in impasto. So I had done impasto, and then I wanted to change my composition, and you can still see all the impasto from the layers before, after I changed it, and it's kind of bugging me. I don't know. I might start that guy over. I can't wait to show it to you guys, though, the idea anyway. And I'll explain it. That's why this is the art of ideas. I'll show you some of the philosophy and psychology behind some of my more complicated compositions as we go, and explain why I have a pretty, I think, I don't know, pretty different way of thinking about composition. I know all the rules of composition. As I think any artist should, we should study, study, study. But once you know those rules, like I said, you can go out and break them. And my philosophy is behind a lot of what I do with composition is philosophical as much as aesthetical. So I use composition a lot. And I think you see that in a lot of famous paintings, though, where, composition is a tool of telling your story. It's the whole idea. Even if the story is simply aesthetic, I'm having a real hard time talking right now. My mouth's really dry. I'm drinking water, but it's not helping. Probably, I don't like candy or corn syrup very much, but I'll tell you what, as somebody who smoked a lot of weed in their life, corn syrup really helps with cotton mouth. So I might have to get some gummy bears or something just to pop one every once in a while so I can re-up the saliva so I can speak to you guys for hours on end, because I'll be doing marathon sessions sometimes. We might have days where we go 8-12 hours without a break. Unlikely, though. Breaks are good. Taking breaks is good. I like taking a lot of little breaks so I can have a think. And so you'll find this, like Dolly was this way. You wake up, you get to work, you have dinner, you take a break, you have a couple drinks. I try not to drink too much anymore, though. But, you get the idea. You relax. Then you feel inspired again. You got a new look at your piece that you've been working on all day because you just took that break, which is very important. You get fresh eyes on your piece, and then bam, you're right back into wanting to get all excited into it again. So this blue is a little harsh. It's okay. It really wasn't hard to push your jaw back, was it? All I had to do was I'm gonna take a little. I'm gonna make a. I have purple in tubes right here. Excuse me. Sorry about the big burp. I've got all kinds of purples. Here's a cobalt violet. I have some dioxine. And if I'm doing a huge amount of purple in a painting, like a finger painting, then I'll throw those suckers out. Those are convenience colors. I'll throw those on my palette. But 90% of the time, I stick to, I'll say this a lot, I stick to a real limited palette. 1 white, 2 yellows, 1 of them primary, 2 reds, 1 of them primary, 2 blues, 1 of them primary. That's it. Greens and yellows, yellows and blues make green. We make every green in the world with what I got out. I can hit a huge range of color with what I just have out. Now, if I really want something more gray, I know I already talked about using complements, especially in shadows. If you want to make a purple shadow and you have a yellow light, well, that makes sense. Shadows are generally inverse, or the complementary color to whatever color your light source is. So, for example, this, I'm imagining more of a warm kind of yellow orangey light So my shadows are going to go towards the more purple blue. Now, it's an unfortunate situation, but if you've ever been near a forest fire and the sky's all red when the sun is setting, the sun will be casting, or even with the band of Venus, the light shift that happens in the morning and afternoon. And I could explain how that happens. I'm pretty sciencey. I'm not the smartest guy in the world by any means, but I really like to understand things, especially as they pertain to what we do, art-wise. And I'm a general artist. I'm a painter, yes, but I'm a painter. I'm a sculptor. I wish I could say I was a musician. I'm a poor musician. I spent several years, of course, through school, like elementary through high school, playing the saxophone. I was terrible at it because I never practiced. And I just never jived with music, even though that was actually the thing I think as an artist I would have really liked to have been the most, is maybe a musician. But being a painter, that was just something, I mean, people will often ask anybody who does anything, like how they got into it or why they do it. And it's, artists are usually say all the same thing, which is, I didn't have a choice. I just did it. It's just what I did. And I find that very true most of the time. With me, I didn't have a choice. It's just something I do. Spending hours in the library during lunchtime in high school looking at art books, honestly. I spent a huge amount of time studying Renaissance art, huge amount, doing drawings of, doing Van Gogh drawings, or not Van Gogh drawings, although I've done that too, but Leonardo da Vinci drawings, like Da Vinci's portrait. I drew that when I was in high school. I almost nailed it exactly. And ever since I did that portrait, I can draw that face from memory. In fact, I did it. You'll see it on my website. And I'm horrible. I can't remember the name of the painting now, but you'll see it there. I have, it's a landscape with a city rising up in the background and a guitar player playing in the foreground. It was a commission piece that I did for a friend, and it was kind of a trade job for some advertising in a magazine. So I did this painting, and he wanted me to paint God in the picture, like a traditional God staring down from the clouds version of God. So for fun, a little tongue-in-cheek, kind of a personal private joke, and I told him about it. I made the image of God, Leonardo da Vinci. There you go. And I didn't use a picture. I just used my memory of the drawing I had done previously of Da Vinci in high school. It came out great. I'm really... It's an old painting. It's not up to my current technique by any means. In fact, looking at it now, I still appreciate it. It's a fun painting, but I'm like, yeah, so much better now. That was, I don't know, several years ago, 8, 9 years ago. All right, let's take a look really quick, see what we're doing. Blow some smoke towards it for effect. Because we got this club music going in the background, we might as well get a fog machine going, right? Well, it's far from done. That tree has a long way to go, but I am like 90% happier with it now than the way it was when we started this stream. So it's amazing. Keep the pressure on. You can get a lot done pretty quick. I still need to add a little bit more darker blue in here. And I will, but I think I'm going to leave this alone for now. I have too much, you probably can't see it, but I have these little impasto strokes that I put in here before I did the glaze, which was pretty fucking stupid. That was a bad move. I did that backwards. Then I went back into it with a little bit more impasto after that glaze. But the glaze will probably dry overnight, but this impasto is going to take a few days. And it's not that thick. If I was going to get thicker with it, I would have used that number 5 medium, Lucas medium number 5 to do it. But I usually only do that if I figure it's going to take like a month or so to dry. Yeah, looking good. I like to get some maybe warmer pinks up in here. Maybe we'll do that for a second. I ran out of medium too, so if I want more medium, I'm gonna have to mix it, but I'm not really, I don't think I'm going to. I don't think I need it at this point. I think we can get along without it. That's pretty bright. I didn't mean to put that. I just want to see what this would look like on this edge. Pretty cool. A little too much. Let's calm that down. Blend it out with our fingers. As Stuart Davies says, you want to make clouds. Another great artist on YouTube. Really appreciate that guy. He's a great dude. I'd love to hang out with that guy. In fact, if I money up in the next year, I'm thinking about just going and taking one of his classes. Not because I think I would necessarily get, learn a lot. I mean, not that I'm not opening to learning a lot. I just watch his videos all the time. I doubt there's much that he can tell me that I already don't know from watching his videos. But I think it would be just be fun because I've always wanted to go to England, in France, and I believe he's in France most of the time. And I've had opportunity to go there in the past, and it came up, and then it just fell apart at the last second. Like that's happened to me twice. So so now I'm gonna make the opportunity. Besides, I have a friend in France, so I'd like to go visit. And I've always wanted to go to the Louvre, of course. What artist doesn't want to go check out the Louvre? So, but Stuart Davies, what a great guy. I highly recommend anybody who's a newbie to oil painting, go watch him because he's all about picking up the big brush first. Which is a smart way of working. I do it sometimes. It's pretty cool. It's a little on the strong side. I'll probably calm it down later. Or now. We'll see. Going with a much more pastel. There we go. That's nice. I'll have a variance of like 5 or 6 colors and everything. I like to gradually change my saturation from light to dark and shadow. Alrighty, well, whatever. I wasn't even planning on working in that area. It was just there. Let's see. Yeah, it's pretty good. That pink is nice. I have a bunch of impasto in here, so I'm just kind of drawing around it. Just want to touch more saturation up here to hold the corners. That was something Monet used to say. He said, "Always hold your corners." What he means is to create a darker, almost vignette effect. And I do it a lot. I mean, it's something I always think about. I usually darken my corners intentionally so that your eye doesn't wander off the canvas. If that makes any sense. So the next session on this guy is probably going to be a lot of pulling more light into it. Not in a lot of areas, I can't pull much more light into it, but in this big, huge dark mass, we'll pull out some more subtlety to the shadow. And then we'll go into this canopy and work on these glows a lot. And we'll start picking out some more glowy effects and darkening up. And then at some point, I'll probably let all that dry and then blast it with a little bit of white. I like to do it dry brush style with a very, very stiff bristle brush. And I can give you a little bit of a preview of what that'll look like because I kind of want to start establishing it. I keep doing it It takes a lot of layers to get it really looking good. But yeah, I'll just grab this big cheap Chinese bristle I've got here. I love these things. They shed, but they work well. So this area is just supposed to be as bright as I can make it, because I've got light coming through here, and I'll have some through here, some through here. But I want this to dry. I don't want to start doing this over here because I have all these individual wet strokes. So I'm gonna let that live for now until that dries, and then do this. And then I'll probably just get brave and start dragging over this tree trunk. This is just a preview. What's gonna really, how effective it'll really be in the end. And this is all wet. Like, I'm working over a wet area, so this isn't the smartest thing in the world to do. I'm just trying to make a point. Hopefully you got the point, because I don't want to do it anymore. Not there. Not right now. But I'll be doing that like 3 or 4 more times as this goes on. Hopefully I don't have a huge amount of sessions left in this. I don't want to dwell on paintings too much anymore. Like, I'm getting kind of tired of spending months agonizing over something. And I think I'm getting better enough to the point where I feel like I'm getting much, much, much faster. Which is always a good thing, especially if we want to pay bills. I'm just messing around right now. I'm probably going to call this session here pretty soon because I've run out of I'm running out of areas to work in, because, as I said, a lot of this is wet from the few streams we've done over the last few days, and all the in-between picking I've been doing on it when I'm not recording. I'm just having fun picking out some lighter, warmer tones since I made that pink. There we go, a little variation there. That's a lot more depth. A little bit different, a little bit different, a little bit different, a little bit different. They're all a little different. They all feel believable in the sense that they all feel like they can live in the same world, but there's a little bit of interest there, even in just 1 inch of grass. All right, dry that out, taking a step back. Might go into some thinner really quick, and I got that China marker a little bit, got a little carried away with it. There we go, it's a little better. Might drop down this area a little bit, not sure. All right. Reestablish my pink in the ear. I'm just roughly throwing it in for now. All right, I need to go back in with some blue there and a little bit of purple in there. Yeah, not dark enough. I only put out cyan, I didn't put out a darker blue, so See if I can make it work with what I've got. Let's see. That's a pretty awesome blue. I like it. Nope, not dark enough. It's okay, I'll mess with that another time. I don't want to put any more color out right now. Because I'm not sure what we're going to be working on tomorrow. Not sure, haven't decided yet. We'll fill it out, see what feels fun at the time. And that's just like a little bit of a preview of how I'm going to lighten these all up. I'm going to come through here and do all kinds of stuff with this foliage. And I'm going to have some big, huge, I'm going to blast in some huge flowers in here. They're not going to look realistic. It's going to be awesome. If I want realism, I take a photo. Can't take a photo of this. Well, you can take a photo of the painting, but yeah. And this still feels like I need to add more dark in here. And I started to a little bit after I finished last night's session on film. I actually started going in here and pulling out some dark shadows, and I just didn't really get into this area, which I'm going to have to do. But I might be able to do that as I'm doing highlighting as well. So yeah, we're almost 2 hours. I think I'll call it at 2 hours. Yeah, we'll probably call this now, and expect to see me again tomorrow, hopefully, maybe, if I don't have any anything else going on. Washing my brushes out. I'll probably paint more, for sure. I will. It's not even a probably, I will. But as far as like being able to move quick and try to stay somewhat entertaining on camera, I think I pretty much reached the limit on that. The rest of the night, probably until like 4 or 5 in the morning, and for reference, it's like, what time is it? I have no idea. Okay, it's 20 after 10 p.m. on the West Coast Pacific time. So yeah, we're at about 2 hours. And we'll try and do at least 2 hours. If I work on the black and white piece tomorrow, which I could, we'll see. I still have a bunch of color out. I hate switching up paintings, like going from a colorful painting to a darker painting when I have this color on my palette. And even though I cover up my colors, I just put saran wrap over them and lay some brushes across it to hold it down, and that helps. If you have a bunch of color out, pro tip for you, really good way of saving, and it'll stay indefinitely, is to use aluminum foil. That's what paint tubes are in anyway, is tin. So I will yeah, just double up some aluminum foil, take my palette knife, scrape it off, put it on that, and I keep it individual, like individual tubes. I usually don't. Sometimes I will if I just have a little bit of each color out. I'll take a long strip of aluminum and fold it over a couple times, and just make sure it's airtight, because foil's airtight. That's why they use metal tubes for paint. So just pro tip for you, if you have some aluminum foil around, you can save your paint as long as you want. But if I'm just painting from session to session, day by day, I just leave my paint on my palette and throw saran wrap over it. And I've been using this same piece of saran wrap for a couple weeks, so it's looking pretty ugly. After a couple weeks, I'll change the saran wrap out. I try not to be too wasteful with things. Even if, like paper towels, you use paper towels, to, you're having dinner with your paper towel or whatever, napkin. I'll save those if they're not filthy and disgusting, and I'll use them for oil painting. Try and get the most use out of anything I have as possible, because that's just being smart. Alrighty, I'll put the lid back in my medium container because I've been using the same container for like a month. As long as I don't break it, it'll stay good. And until tomorrow or the next day, we'll see what happens. But yeah, it is my intent to stream as much as possible. Just starting out here. But this is a ton of fun. I really enjoy doing this. And I'll find my voice and my confidence with the camera eventually. It really doesn't bother me or scare me or anything. I just need to find, just about doing it, I feel uncomfortable hanging out with real people too. Much less a camera pointing at me, so something to work on. Cover my paint up. Even though I'll probably be back at this as soon as I shut the camera off, I'll see something I want to do. But until next time, I hope you guys had fun or learned something. And if you have any suggestions, go and leave them in the comments. Until then, see you tomorrow and make a beautiful day.